Hello, MCU fans! Today we're going to take a look at No Good Deed and Once Upon a Deadpool to figure out what their overall timelines are and whether or not they should be considered canon to the X-Men universe. And right off the bat, I want to give a huge thank you to Robbie and Marlon. You guys were amazing. It was so much fun researching this topic with you, so thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so much to discuss on this, so let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we have an August contest running all month long. Be a subscriber, leave a comment. You could win a book or a steelbook. Best of luck. And we have a membership option with lots of cool perks, so you might check it out in case you're interested. In fact, this video was an early release to members, so just one of the many examples of things you can get as a member. All right, so many times I have shown my X-Men timeline, and as you know, the top timeline is the original timeline, the middle is the revised timeline after Days of Future Past, and the final timeline is the revised timeline after Cable comes back from 2054 in the future. But I've been asked many times, why do you repeat the movies that, are already out there once? In other words, it just looks a little more complicated than it needs to be. And you know what? You're right. So I'm going to go with this. I really like this idea better. Notice First Class is in the original timeline and in the revised, and then all the way up to New Mutants is in the revised, and then part of the revised. So anyway, let me know if you like this better, but I agree. Great suggestions from folks, so thank you to everyone who said to do this. All right, if you do want to know more about the X-Men timeline, you can check out a couple different videos. I have one on the full X-Men timeline, and then another going really detailed into the Deadpool timeline of the main three movies. But of course, this time around, we're going to focus on No Good Deed and on Once Upon a Deadpool. So I've put down the time frames that I came up with for the original Deadpool movies, Deadpool, Deadpool 2, and Deadpool and Wolverine. So now we're going to look at how No Good Deed and Once Upon a Deadpool would fit in. So we'll start with No Good Deed, which also is kind of a trailer for Deadpool 2. It came out on March 4th of 2017, and that's important. We'll discuss why in a moment. But you can check it out online. It's on Ryan Reynolds' YouTube channel. It's a short, 3 minutes, 41 seconds, but 31 million views. Obviously been viewed several times. All right, so it opens with Deadpool going out for a walk. And then suddenly he hears someone being held up at gunpoint. And so duty calls. He realizes, I've got to do something. So he starts booking it, and we get an awesome, awesome Easter egg. Notice in the upper left-hand corner, Logan is being shown at a movie theater on the street corner that he's running past. So keep in mind that Logan came out on March 3rd of 2017. And as I mentioned, this No Good Deed came out on March 4th. So literally it was released the day after Logan was released. So, are they trying to say that the reason Deadpool knows why Logan died is because he watched the movie? I know that makes no sense if we try to actually rationally think through it, but again, with fourth wall breaking people like Deadpool, nothing really makes sense. You just have to roll with it. So I love the fact that he watched the Logan movie, and that's how he knew in Deadpool 2 that Logan died. Oh my word. So anyway, we then actually hear the Superman theme playing, the original one from the 70s, as he's running in a phone booth. Because remember, Superman would always change in a phone booth. Kind of draws memories to the 1979 Superman movie where he tried to go to a phone booth. And of course, it was the smaller version. He's just looking at it like, I can't change in that. Well, it turns out Deadpool can change in this phone booth. But we also get another fun Easter egg. Notice it says Nathan Summers coming soon, referring to, of course, Cable, whose real name is Nathan Summers. And yes, I do realize that coming is spelled a certain way. I'm going to move past that. But anyway, the Cable is obviously in Deadpool 2, so another fun little hint at what's coming up when Deadpool 2 is released. So then Wade slowly, as in very slowly, for like 30 seconds at least, is changing out of his clothes and into his costume. At one point, he is butt naked, pressing his butt cheeks against the telephone booth, which I have to censor for the kids. But if you're really interested in seeing Ryan Reynolds' butt cheeks against a phone booth, this is the video for you. But anyway, finally he gets changed, and then this is kind of funny. He makes a phone call to someone which at the time you can't quite figure out who it is, but he later reveals that he's calling his costume designer because he's complaining about how long it takes to change. Well, anyway, it does take him too long, and a shot rings out. And oh my goodness, he realizes, I got to get over there. That's not good. So he books it out of the phone booth, and right as he comes out, oh my word, this is so incredible. Stan Lee, who just happens to be standing there, goes, wow, nice suit. And he turns and says, zip it, Stan Lee. So funny. And in fact, if you're saying to yourself, wait, I've never seen No Good Deed, but I remember seeing this. Well, you have a good memory, because in Deadpool and Wolverine, during the credits, when they're doing all the nostalgia things about all the different X-Men, sure enough, X-Men movies, sure enough, they actually have this, both Stan Lee and Deadpool from No Good Deed. So that's really cool. It's another kind of wink and a nod that this is meant to be canon. I don't know. You can let me know your thoughts at the end on whether you think this is canon, but I just think it fits perfectly. So anyway, he runs out of the phone booth. He's off to save the day. He passes by yet another Easter egg for the Logan movie. That's so funny. But then he realizes some bad news. He looks down and says, "Oh, you're not going to walk this one off." And sure enough, he's taken way too long in the phone booth, and the dude is dead. Oh, my word. So what does Deadpool do? Well, of course, he lays down on him and starts thinking about life. He starts to wonder, why was there a phone booth there to begin with? That doesn't really make sense. And then he grabs ice cream out of the sack of the dude that's been killed and starts to eat it. And then he ponders, Wolverine's costume is so much easier. It's just a tank top. That's not even fair. So that's when he starts saying he's got to call his costume designer and complain about the costume. Oh, my word, so funny, so funny. And then, for no reason whatsoever, they run through a rendition on screen as Deadpool's talking of, presumably, Wade's version of Old Man in the Sea. So you can watch the video and pause it if you want to read it. It's just silly. It's kind of funny, but it's just meant to be silly. So, okay, what do we do with this? I think it should be considered canon. I see no reason not to. I love the nod to Logan, and we know when it is, March of 2017. So fits perfectly in between the first Deadpool and Deadpool 2. Let me know your thoughts if you disagree, but I think we should consider it canon. All right, so there's that. Now, in the immortal words of Monty Python, and now for something completely different. Once Upon a Deadpool is crazy. So I watched it just for this video. I'd never seen it before. And essentially, it's Deadpool who wants to tell a PG-13 version of Deadpool 2. He wants to tell it basically in story form to, well, none other than Fred Savage, who is a very unwilling victim in this situation. Now, you might remember Fred Savage from The Wonder Years. Perhaps you saw it in syndication. Great show. But this setup is more similar to The Princess Bride, which if you've never seen The Princess Bride, you gotta see it. But basically, it's Peter Falk, the immortal Columbo, telling a story to a young Fred Savage who keeps interrupting and breaking into the story at multiple points. So yeah, check out Princess Bride. Very, very good. But definitely this is meant to be an homage to that, because notice the set behind Fred there. And sorry for covering you up, Fred, but this is the set from Princess Bride. The same Santa, the Cheetos, the little car. I love it. Very, very, very clever how they did this. Okay, so Deadpool says this version is going to be more innocent, harmless, and have a minimum of strong language, a la PG-13. But even funnier, he explains it's the King James version of Deadpool 2. Oh, my word. All right, so we also learn Fred really has little choice but to listen. He has been duct taped to the bed. So with no other option but to listen, he now lets Deadpool start to tell him the story. Okay, so basically the movie will go along to a certain point and then Fred will break in, and that's what I'm going to talk about in each case. So the story proceeds to Deadpool's anniversary when he's got to get home to see Vanessa, and Fred breaks in to say basically he's very skeptical Vanessa would want to kiss him because, how he looks, which is really funny. And also then Fred explains he really kind of prefers Marvel movies. He says, yeah, I like those better. And Deadpool's like, well, we are Marvel. And Fred's like, yeah, but you're Marvel licensed by Fox. Kind of like if the Beatles were produced by Nickelback. It's music, but it sucks. So funny. So yeah, Deadpool gets really annoyed and says, you were nicer as a kid, referring back to The Princess Bride again. Just really, really funny. All right, so then the story proceeds to when Vanessa is killed and is dying. And Fred jumps in hilarious fashion, saying, you know what? That's fridging, dude. Wow, I love it. That's what I thought the same thing when I saw the movie, for what it's worth. Fridging, of course, is when the girlfriend of a main character, in this case it was Green Lantern where it first happened, is found dead. And the only purpose of her dying is to provide motivation for the hero to then go on and do something else, throughout the rest of the story. So yeah, that's funny. Deadpool then counters saying, well, actually, this is more like Mufasa's death in The Lion King. What? And of course, Fred, yeah, he's not buying it. He's like, no, that's not even close to the same. I love it. That's funny. So then the story proceeds to Deadpool killing himself. And then actually, here we see just some new scenes from the extended cut of Deadpool 2. So the ones that weren't in the theatrical version. And in particular, Wade first tries to kill himself by death by polar bear. So he's standing outside a polar bear pit and jumps in to kill himself. Then he tries to shoot himself. He's sitting on a park bench about to kill himself, and up walk an elderly couple who sit down. So he leans in and says, I loved you in Up, and then leans closer to her and says, don't get too attached. Oh my gosh. That is really funny. All right, so then the story proceeds to Cable's first appearance while he's in the future, and Fred goes nuts. He's so excited. He loves Cable, goes through his whole comic story, wants to know if there's going to be time travel. He's just gushing over Cable. Deadpool's kind of annoyed, but does promise that there's time travel. All right, so then the story proceeds to Colossus bringing Wade home to the X-Mansion, and this is another case of some scenes from the extended cut suddenly appearing in the movie. We have Colossus working out, doing acrobatics, I guess, jumping jacks. We have Wade complaining about the refrigerator and the lack of good food. And of course, we have Negasonic making fun of Wade and Yukio thinking he's so sweet. So love those two so much. All right, so then the story proceeds to the death of X-Force, in particular Brad Pitt, because Fred jumps in to say he's so surprised Brad Pitt would want to appear in the movie. So Wade then explains, oh, well, he's holding him in the basement with Matt Damon and Celine Dion. So then this is so funny. So then Fred says, well, I'd really like to fight Matt Damon sometime. So Deadpool gets him to repeat that, only every time he says fight, he bleeps him. So all you hear is f and then a bleep. So you can guess what F word it sounds like Fred is saying he wants to do to Matt Damon. Oh my gosh, just hysterical. Really, really clever, all these little bits with Fred and Deadpool. So then the story proceeds to the Stan Lee cameo, and of course Deadpool 2 was filmed before Stan passed, but because Once Upon a Deadpool came out after he passed, notice they added the RIP to the mural. I love that. What a great touch. All right, so then the story proceeds to Deadpool being ripped in half, and there you see him, reforming his bottom half. And Fred wants to know, well, shouldn't each half regenerate into a Deadpool? And in fact, he wonders if both legs were ripped off, would each of those regenerate? So would you have 3 Deadpools? And Deadpool just hides behind the book because he doesn't have an answer for that question. That's funny. Also, we have Wade, uncrossing his legs, which of course in the R version was interesting. Well, that is censored out, but we do see a new scene with Domino turning around going, hello. That's funny. All right, so then the story proceeds to Deadpool's comment about lazy writing, and this is awesome. So Fred goes, well, why don't you just write a better script then? And Deadpool says, why don't you just shut up then? So funny. So funny. All right, so then the story proceeds to Wade and Vanessa meeting kind of in the afterlife. Remember, when Vanessa's dead, and he's all but dead. And yeah, honestly, just like me, Fred's in tears. That scene gets me every time. I like Deadpool 2 better than the first Deadpool. I know that's not a popular opinion. Most people like the first one better, but I just thought this scene alone was so powerful. But yeah, poor Fred is trying not to say he's crying, though. I'm not crying, you're crying, and says it's really because there's dust in the air. Too funny. So then finally the story proceeds to the end, to the credits, and Fred's very impressed by the credits, actually, comments on how much he enjoyed them. And finally we get to the end of the story, and now it's time for Fred to say, hey, so can I please leave now? All right, Deadpool decides, sure, you can leave, and he takes off the duct tape, but Fred has now lost all feeling in his legs. Oh, but that's not it. As he stands up, we realize he's not even wearing pants. Yeah, Deadpool only halfway dressed him. Oh, my word. So, yeah, they censor it out, but poor Deadpool has to now help Fred out the door and even explains to him he's actually been asleep for 3 days, which creeps Fred out even more. Oh, my word. Then we get an awesome, awesome fourth wall break. Notice on the right, you can see the cameraman there, and here's a better shot of the cameraman. So, yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen with fourth wall breakers, right? I mean, this is just like in Deadpool and Wolverine when he says, suck it, Fox, I'm going to Disney, and then crashes the camera. So, yeah, fourth wall breakers like Deadpool and She-Hulk, they can just do anything. Let's just be honest. All right, so then in Once Upon a Deadpool's closing credits, we get outtakes from, of all things, No Good Deed again. So yeah, this thing's got to be canon, right? Because we have the Stan Lee doing several different versions of his nice suit. So very cool. One time he actually says, look, it's Ryan Gosling instead of Ryan Reynolds. Too funny. Then I love this. So they asked Stan Lee, you can tell he's pretty near death here, but they said, when you're not around, what do you want people to remember about you? And he humbly says that he wrote some good stories. Oh, wow. That gets you. He's such a cool dude. I love Stan Lee. R.I.P., buddy. And then they show a shot of his Hollywood star and finally do a nice little tribute to the man himself. Absolutely love it. So, what do we do with this? Did Once Upon a Deadpool actually happen? Well, keep in mind, in Deadpool 2, Deadpool did enter into the real world to basically shoot Ryan Reynolds before he could read the script to Green Lantern and then said, you're welcome, Canada. Maybe while he was in the real world, he went over to talk to Fred Savage because he wanted to share the story of Deadpool 2 and, increase his legend. Remember, in Deadpool and Wolverine, we learn he wanted to impress Vanessa. In fact, so much so that he went to 616 to talk to Happy Hogan to try to join the Avengers. And he did it using Cable's device. So maybe that's how he also went to the real world to talk to Fred Savage. And we know that this was around March of 2018. And then soon after this, if you remember, he destroys the device because he tells that to Paradox that he got rid of it. So, okay, what do we do with this? I don't know. I don't know whether we call it canon or not. But I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes, Deadpool can do whatever he wants, and that around March of 2018, while he was using that device, he went to go visit Fred Savage. Now, I do realize that the setting was Christmas, but knowing Deadpool, that's what he wanted other people to think, or maybe that's what he wanted Fred to think. So when Fred wakes up, he put all the Christmas stuff in the room and made it like a Christmas story. So, because there's no way it could happen in December of 2018, because he'd already destroyed the device by then. So if this thing is canon, it has to be around the March timeframe. Okay, let me know what you think. I like that idea. I mean, it's Deadpool. He can do anything he wants. So if we go back now to our timeline, we can stick in both No Good Deed and Once Upon a Deadpool. So No Good Deed would be in the revised timeline, and then Once Upon a Deadpool would be after Deadpool 2. Using the device, presumably, to go and tell the story to Fred Savage. So one other thing I want to talk about, people have been a little confused by how Deadpool and Wolverine fits into the overall MCU timeline. So don't forget, I do have my Google timeline document out there, and I'll leave a pinned comment so you can find it. It has everything in order by timeline month and timeline year, but you can sort either way, by release or by timeline. And then most importantly, you can filter. And if you filter by the X-verse movies, then you get everything from the X-Men universe. And notice now No Good Deed and Once Upon a Deadpool are in there. But also, if I include what I'm now calling MCU, because I think of Deadpool and Wolverine as an MCU movie, let's focus on just those. All right, so you have Deadpool, No Good Deed, New Mutants. I know some people place that later, but I place it in 2017. Logan, Deadpool 2, Once Upon a Deadpool, Deadpool and Wolverine flashback. Then we know that the Marvels, Loki Season 2, and What If happen because in Deadpool and Wolverine, they've stopped pruning, which they stopped doing in Loki Season 2. However, notice I'm still putting under the timeline year 2024. So how can that happen, right? If the MCU is now into November of 2026, how do you have a November of 2024? Well, keep in mind, Paradox can do whatever they want from the TVA. The TVA jumps around all over the place. So the movie is after Loki Season 2. But Paradox jumps into Deadpool's timeline in 2024. Remember, in Loki Season 1, they were jumping into the Middle Ages. They were jumping anywhere that Sylvie showed up in the timeline. So it's weird, yes, but it does make sense that Paradox would jump into Deadpool's timeline in 2024 because that must be the version of Deadpool that he wanted. So let me know your thoughts on that, but I think that works really well. Okay, so there you go. Don't forget, August contest, be a subscriber, leave a comment, win a book or a steelbook. And there's that membership option in case you're interested. And of course, there's the Discord that I mentioned. And here we are actually talking, Marlon and Robbie, about how to fit all this in. And there's Fred saying, I kind of prefer Marvel movies. Love it. So I will leave a pinned comment so you can join 1,600 members across the globe, conversation 24/7, and we would like you to be part of it. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, the ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.